All right, guys, this video is going to be brought to you by Risky Nick. I mean, he requested this video, I think, like a week or two ago. I'm sorry, I'm just now getting to it. Been extremely busy. I've had a lot of videos to make, but nonetheless, we are going to talk about some players, at least one guy this video. Maybe we are going to talk about another one in a future date, but this is a guy that the entire Dynasty community is just completely off of, and they're scared to draft him. And I understand why. I understand he has his question marks going into 2020, but we're going to talk about him, and we're going to talk about why I think he's actually a decent value right now. And yeah, let's just get into the video.
That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
So the player we're going to be talking about is Austin Hooper. And I mean, we have heard Austin Hooper's name talked about this offseason about 0 times. Nobody speaks Austin Hooper. I don't listen to too many podcasts anymore, but nonetheless, even on Twitter, I don't see him getting brought up. And that's just because he has gone to the Cleveland Browns, a situation that does not look very friendly for pass catchers outside of Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. And even a lot of people want to be afraid of Odell and Jarvis. And this is due to the Browns offense really not projecting to have a lot of volume going into 2020. We know that they are a team that's going to try to run the ball similar to the Vikings offense last year due to them just acquiring their offensive coordinator. And nobody was really excited to go out there and get anybody outside of Stephon Diggs or Adam Thielen last offseason, and we're seeing a very similar thing happen in Cleveland this year, which is understandable because we look at that breakdown for targets in Minnesota last year. Pretty much if you were not Adam Thielen, if you were not Stephon Diggs, you were not getting targeted. And I think that we are going to see a little bit different of a situation going into 2020 with the Cleveland Browns. But nonetheless, let me talk about Austin Hooper for a little bit. He is currently 25 years old, which I was surprised to see. I thought Austin Hooper was going to be a guy that was 27, 28 years old. I swear to God, we've been talking about him for the longest time in Dynasty, but I guess he came into the NFL. I think he came in 2015, if I'm remembering correctly. He came in with Hunter Henry, and I guess he was just an extremely young player. I got lucky enough to go out there and buy him cheaply on a couple teams last offseason. I definitely missed on some tight ends like O.J. Howard, but I got lucky and had Austin Hooper there on the bench ready to slide in, and I was excited to see where he was going to go this offseason. I was really hoping that he was going to stay in Atlanta. The Atlanta situation is very similar to what we're seeing in Cleveland. The only difference is Atlanta's volume is going to be way up, but they do have similar passing distributions where they have those 2 top-tier wide receivers and nothing really behind it. And we're seeing the same thing in Cleveland, but nonetheless, just less volume. And we see Austin Hooper go to Cleveland due to the money they gave him. I mean, he's getting $11 million a year, and he is set with guaranteed money. If we look at the guarantees in his contract, he's actually guaranteed money. And I mean, he cannot be cut until the 2023 season. And I believe that he could be cut for, I just looked at it, I think maybe $4 million on the dead cap. So that's something that they would be able to get out of him. But nonetheless, I mean, he has more guaranteed money on his contract than any other tight end in the NFL. And yes, obviously, this is going to be due to him just signing this contract this offseason, but also due to the Cleveland Browns really planning to incorporate Austin Hooper to their offense in 2020 and beyond. And this is what I talk about all the time. I talk about going out there, looking at what the NFL teams do, looking at what the NFL teams expect to do in the future, and not really try to go out there and evaluate these players based off of what we see on film. Because if you are a Dynasty analyst, if you're a Dynasty player, I promise you, you watching film is not any better than an NFL scout, an NFL executive watching that same film. I want to be the happy guy. I want to tell y'all that y'all are so good at it. But in reality, I mean, if you're an accountant, if you're doing this for fun, we're probably not any better. We're probably a lot worse than NFL scouts and NFL executives. So I would rather just look at what the team does and see how I can project that to scoring fantasy points. But nonetheless, let's look at what Austin Hooper was able to do in the perfect situation in Atlanta in 2019. So we're just going to look at the first half of the season because after Austin Hooper's bye, he goes out there and he gets injured in the next game, and he's really not the same in the offense ever since. So we're going to look at weeks 1 through 8, the first half of the season, right before leading up to his bye. And during this stretch, obviously, was the best stretch in Austin Hooper's season. But nonetheless, I think we can kind of excuse that away with the injury. He was averaging 17.7 points per game, which puts him on pace for the tight end 1 in 2019. Yes, this is a small sample size. This is only 8 weeks, but we have to keep in mind the NFL season is a small sample size, and pretty much everything we're doing is projecting based on that. So nonetheless, we can discount this a little bit, but at the same time, we look at it, and what's most impressive about this small sample 8-week stretch we're looking at is it was not driven by touchdowns. And that's something I talk about all the time. If we see these guys that go out there and they score way too many touchdowns than the amount of targets they got, they are someone we can expect to significantly regress going into the next year. But Austin Hooper, he was scoring touchdowns, but not at a ridiculous pace. He was averaging 6.5 receptions, 73 yards, and 0.625 touchdowns, which puts him on pace for 10 touchdowns in the season. And with the amount of targets and with the amount of receptions that he was getting, I mean, that's pretty much expecting what you would get from an average tight end in terms of the touchdown category. So I don't think that this is an outlier season by Austin Hooper by any means. I mean, the argument going into Cleveland is he's not going to be able to see this type of volume, which is completely fair. And I think that's what's most likely going to happen, because if we were projecting Cleveland to be able to support Austin Hooper like we saw in Atlanta, his ADP, his dynasty price, everything about this would be completely different. I wouldn't be making this video. But the thing is, we're looking at the Cleveland Browns. We're saying that we're confidently projecting Austin Hooper to not finish near this close to where he did in 2019. And now let's talk about what exactly his price is in both dynasty leagues and redraft leagues. So in the Flock 10 league that ended about a month ago at this point, and side note, I just want to give this quick announcement. I've gotten this question a couple times in the past couple weeks, but I don't think I'm going to be hosting any more dynasty startups this offseason, just mainly due to I cannot confidently say with 100% certainty that we're even going to have an NFL season. So with this close of a season in mind, by no means don't bother going to the comment section and saying, of course we're having an NFL season, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to really argue about that. I think more than likely we're going to at least see the season start. More than likely it's going to be not what we expect, and I don't think any of us really know what's going to happen. But what I do know is we can say that there is not a 100% chance that the 2020 NFL season is kicking off without a flaw. So no more flock leagues this offseason. Maybe we can kick some more up next offseason. But nonetheless, in that last flock league, I drafted Austin Hooper at Dynasty tight end 11. And if we're looking at redraft leagues, I expected Austin Hooper to be going a little bit higher than he is. He's actually being drafted as around the tight end 12 in that tier with the players like TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant in redraft leagues, in the high stakes redraft leagues, which we know that's a lot better to look at than any garbage fantasy football trade calculator.com ADP. I mean, we are going out there and we are trying to look at what the best players in the game are doing. I mean, those guys that draft FFPC high stakes dynasty leagues, I mean, not necessarily dynasty leagues, because if you're playing in a FFPC dynasty league, I mean, I don't really know what you're doing, paying a 25% rake on a pot. But those guys playing those redraft leagues, that most of them, I can probably bet that they know more than I do. So I love looking and seeing what they are doing and trying to adjust my dynasty strategy to seeing what the Sharks are doing. But we're looking at this ADP, and I think it's a little bit off due to the news about David Njoku requesting a trade. And I think this is being kind of swept under the rug. I know it's been news for David Njoku owners, but at the same time, I think this is news for Austin Hooper as well. It's dumb to say, but nonetheless, I mean, David Njoku is a player that I still believe is one of the top tight ends in the NFL. I believe that he is a starter in terms of tight end talent, and he's going to be on a different team at the beginning of the season. They are going to want to use 12 personnel, so they're not just going to give David Njoku away for free. But at the same time, this is a player that's coming near the end of his rookie contract. I believe they picked up his 5th-year option. But with the amount of money they gave Austin Hooper, by no means do I expect David Njoku to be the long-term answer in Cleveland or even the long-term plan in Cleveland. So I expect David Njoku to possibly be off this team. And if that happens, we are looking at a Cleveland Browns offense. While they may not lead the league in volume by any means, they're going to be a run-heavy team. We're looking at a team that has Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Kareem Hunt. And who else is getting targets on this team? Are we really confidently projecting Rashad Higgins to go out there and command a significant amount of targets? I expect to see high usage in terms of market share for Austin Hooper on this Cleveland Browns offense. And the one thing is, I know, guys, the Cleveland Browns are not going to be throwing the ball a lot. But if we are seeing Austin Hooper as a clear option, number 3 on this offense, and there's going to be nothing else behind him, like Scott always says, I mean, we want to see these offenses that are funneling the ball through few weapons, and that's what we are going to see in Cleveland. So Austin Hooper, I mean, he's only 25. We know tight ends really peak in their career around 28 years old. So he's going in to the peak. He hasn't peaked yet in terms of talent and physical ability. So I think we can expect him to be a low-end tight end 1 for the next couple of years. And if you're paying a Dynasty tight end 11, Dynasty tight end 12 price, I think you're paying for a floor. I think we can project Austin Hooper to be a low-end tight end 1 for 2020. And with that guaranteed money, maybe we don't see Jarvis Landry come back to the Cleveland Browns in 2021. So we see a team that has no David Njoku, no Odell Beckham. Even if they bring in a rookie wide receiver or a free agent wide receiver going into the 2021 season, Austin Hooper will have already been in that offense for a year. Austin Hooper will already be cemented as Baker Mayfield's go-to target at the tight end position. So Austin Hooper is a guy that has a high floor and a high ceiling due to what we already saw from him. Yeah, that's all I got for y'all. I've been off the Austin Hooper train for a little bit, but I think it's time to get back on, especially if you play in a tight end premium league that is 1.5 points per reception, because Austin Hooper is a guy that gets his points off receptions. He's not a guy that's going to be leading the league in touchdowns. That's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video. Really hope y'all have a great day. And if you did enjoy the video, make sure you go down there, make sure you like and subscribe.